Thank you. Thank you. And Carl, thanks so much for the opportunity and the opportunity to speak with all of you. Good evening or good afton. That's the extent of my Swedish, so bear with me. I'm going to talk to you about a very exciting company that we have. It's called Oncology Ventures. And what we do is we actually have a technology that actually can identify which patients are likely to respond to various chemotherapy and cancer treatments so that we can actually improve the outcome of the response rates. Where our goal is really towards focusing on the idea of precision therapy or personalized medicine. That's what we've been able to do. And what I'll share with you is how innovative the technology we have before you. And I hope you'll get as excited as I am about the company. So first, this is just my obligatory disclaimer associated with some of the comments I'll be making this evening. My legal colleagues tell me I need to do this each and every time, so I'm sure you can read it. I'll get it out of the way. But I want to use the majority of the time to talk a little bit about the company. And we are a company building, we're a personalized medicine company in the cancer space, developing therapeutics for high unmet need through a world-class predictive diagnostic platform. That is a lot of words. Simply put, we have a computer simulation and application using AI and a whole series of other tools to help identify which patients can respond to certain chemotherapy treatments, thereby increasing the response rates of common drugs. It's really quite innovative and first in class and state of the art. We were founded in Denmark in 2004. We trade on the NASDAQ First North Stockholm Exchange. We have a company with a portfolio of 7 cancer products currently that will be addressing some areas of really high unmet need. Our core technology, we call it the DRP, Drug Response Platform or Predictor, is the tool that we use to help determine through algorithms and computer applications which drugs are more likely to respond, and more importantly, how we can then take drugs and make sure they get into the right patient at the right time so that people can avoid getting treatment where they will not benefit, patients that will have no response rates. Really quite innovative. We own all the intellectual property. We have over 30 different patents today. We have many more filed. We also have patents filed for over 75 other cancer drugs. And why that's important is we can enhance the predictiveness of cancer therapy for many, many cancer compounds in the marketplace. And I'm happy to say the company is going through a little bit of an evolution, a change, and the change is really the history of our research has gotten to a point where we're now changing from what would be more of an R&D organization to a commercial enterprise. And that's why both myself and Henrik have been brought on board to help move the company in that direction. We're in the midst of actually a rights raising period right now. We're actually completing a road show, and I'm delighted to have the opportunity to speak with all of you about the company and happy to talk more about it after we conclude. This is a quick snapshot of some of the management. You can see the folks that are part of our team. Everyone has 25 plus years experience in the industry with big pharma names, as you can see here to the right, including Bristol Myers, Lilly, J&J, GE, and of course Henrik, who comes with deep expertise in the Scandinavian markets here as well. Dr. Steen is really the genius behind the tool, and I'll talk a little bit about more of that in just one moment. This represents a summary of our portfolio. Each of these to the left here are the list of compounds. In the center, the type of cancer that they are treating, and then the stage of development, where they are in the development phase. And this is a nice problem to have. We have many, many products, but our goal was really to try to bring forward the products to market utilizing our DRP platform, which I'll talk about just in a minute. And I often describe this as a champagne problem because we have more products than we can handle as a small company. But we're focusing on the top 3, and I'll talk about them in just one moment. So I first like to set the stage about the problem. The problem today in cancer treatment is that we try to take groups of people that have a certain kind of cancer and we treat them all the same. We give them one common drug, and unfortunately of that drug, only a few patients actually get a response. And why is that the case? Because everybody's cancer is different, everybody's biology is different, The way cancer interacts with various cells and genes are completely different. And so this kind of approach is one that has not done very well for us historically. And what we find is many patients get no survival benefit whatsoever with the cancer drug, but worse yet, many of them have terrible toxicity problems. They lose their hair. They have all kinds of issues with the chemotherapy itself, so their quality of life goes away. So wouldn't it be great if we can identify which of these patients out of that pool, before giving them drug, before giving them treatment, would likely get a response and that could get a survival benefit? Well, I'm happy to say that Oncology Ventures has figured that out, and I'll share with you in just a moment how we do that. Our goal is to identify these patients proactively so that we can give the drug to the right patient at the right time. So how does DRP, the acronym that I use, work? What we simply do is we take data from various different sources and we pull together and we look at correlation. So we take data with how drugs interact with cancer cells, which are huge databases of information. We take the full mapping of the genome and understand that big pool of information. We put that together. We look at transcriptomics, how drugs react with one another, and we pull these resources all together through a filtering system where we look at correlation. How does a tumor cell work inside the human body? How does it interact? And from that, we apply a unique algorithm, a computer algorithm. So this is a sophisticated computer algorithm where we can actually spill out the bottom end a tool, a DRP tool, a diagnostic tool that we can tell you which patient with drug is going to get a survival benefit and which do not. It sounds pretty exciting and pretty impressive, and it really is transformational. And we have data and studies to prove we can do this. We've done it a number of times. So if I were to map out the complexity of the databases we're talking about, this is how, if you analyze how genes communicate with one another, it's very complex. So the human body can't process the amount of information about how genes interact. Some turn on, some turn off based on the cancer. That's just one pool of data, of course. You've got human biology, how the human body interacts with genes and RNA and DNA. That's another pool of information. These are huge, huge databases of information. The third is you have drugs, how drugs interact with cancer cells. You take a drug, you put it on a microscope with a cancer cell. Does it kill it? Is it, how does it interact? What signals does it send back and forth? And so we take all this information and we run it through this complex algorithm system, this DRP system, and we're able to get a predictive marker, a predictive diagnostic to tell you whether or not you're going to get a survival benefit with a cancer drug. It's really quite revolutionary, and it's something that's going to transform the way oncology is treated. So I said we have information and data, and here's kind of proof as an example. And we have many, many studies that we have. This is what's called a survival curve. It's a general view of how oncologists measure response rates. And this green line represents patients and how long they survive. The red line represents patients when they get drug, they die. Unfortunately, you don't want to be red, you want to be green. Well, our tool can identify prospectively before any treatment was done, simply by doing a biopsy study, like a diagnostic test, which patients are going to be in the green and which patients are going to be in the red. So what we can do is we can give the drug to those in green where they get a survival, and we can eliminate the opportunity for those that die or unfortunately don't get any benefit where they can get another therapy. This is a clinical study. We have over 35 of them already completed, showing and demonstrated prospectively, this is science working, that we can actually do this and do it incredibly accurately. It's really, really remarkable. So our company has decided to focus on 3 of our products, which we have these DRPs. And the reason that we're focused on 3 is because, as I mentioned earlier, we have a champagne problem. We have too many, and we need to focus on 3. And we've picked these 3 because these 3 have the highest potential for commercial application to benefit patients. We have a DRP, and we can get them to the market very, very quickly. So let me talk about each of these very generically, of course. So this first product is called the davitinib, and you don't need to understand its mechanism of action, but it actually was originally developed by Novartis. So we inherited from Novartis. It has actually completed phase 3 trials in renal cell carcinoma. We know how it works, its mechanism of action. We know how to make it. But more importantly, we have created our DRP tool in 5 different types of cancers, mainly renal cell carcinoma. So we can predict with this drug what patient would respond and what would not. We have a very clear pathway towards approval with the regulatory authorities, and we're going to be participating in a $6 billion market, $6 billion US dollars. That's with a B, okay? Very high potential product, and as a company, we're moving forward to utilize the DRP. And we'll be the first company in the industry to have a diagnostic tool this sophisticated in the marketplace. Our second product is called Exempra. It's actually already approved in the US. We're filing for approval in Europe. Again, it came originally from Bristol Myers Squibb, big market. Its mechanism of action is well known. We know how to make it because it's already commercially available. We have a DRP in metastatic breast cancer and a pathway to get it to the market pretty quickly. We'll be rolling patients next year for the study. I just emphasize that this product will be participating in a $25 billion market. So imagine if we can, in that marketplace, identify which patients would get a clinical benefit simply by doing this diagnostic test and running it through our DRP diagnostic predictor. It's really quite remarkable. Our last product is a product called 2X121. It is called a PARP inhibitor. That's an acronym. And this is, again, made by a big pharma company and a transformational product. We've got early efficacy in phase 1. We know how it works. This is a drug that we can predict and eliminate any kind of drug resistance, which is a common problem with oncology drugs. We have the manufacturing already worked out, and we also have the DRP validated. Again, we have the tool to take this drug and identify which patients are responding. So if you imagine when we file with the FDA or EMA, we can make sure that the patients that are used in the study are those that are more likely to get a response. So our efficacy numbers go off the charts. Finally, this is a product that's going to be also marketed in a $9 billion market in ovarian cancer. So we're very excited. We've got 3 great products with near-term application and the ability to utilize the first in industry diagnostic tool to predict those that are going to respond. Our company is really poised for 3 big key kind of growth positions. Our first is really to focus on those priority products, okay? Validating and demonstrating the DRP platform, bringing it to the market. We've already proven it. We've done it clinically. Now it's about focusing and bringing it and doing more validated studies. We're going to be entering discussions with a number of big pharmaceutical companies I mentioned earlier, that we have over 75 different products today from other companies that we are developing the molecule for. And then finally, we're going to be actually creating what's called a PRP. This is a patient response predictor, where a patient could actually send a diagnostic sample to a facility, and then we could send back to them which drug is the best drug for them. So it's one thing to say if you're going to be treated with a drug, whether or not you're going to respond or not. That's wonderful unto itself. But we know that we can now actually set up a diagnostic tool where patients can send their sample to a lab, and the lab will tell you, you have this disease, this is where you're going to get the best survival benefit. And that is going to be revolutionary for us in the industry. So we're very excited about it. But of course, we want to walk before we run. So in summary, this is a company focused on a number of very key important oncology products as a way to demonstrate that our diagnostic tool is really, really transformational. We've got the 3 products that I just very quickly highlighted for you. We're going to be the first in the industry to market a diagnostic platform that has a predictor, a validated, not just theoretical, but validated with science, predictor of drug response. It's pretty incredible. And we'll be the first in the industry to be able to do that. We have a very efficient development model. We know how to develop these drugs. We've got an organization poised to be able to do that and do it pretty quickly at a relatively low cost. I'm proud to say we also have an experienced team with experience in not only oncology drug development, but diagnostics as well. And so that's an important. And really the goal for us is obviously to return investment to our shareholders, which is the cornerstone of what we do each and every day. Our new refocused strategy towards commercialization and to drive shareholder value is really kind of the key to our success. So a revolutionary technology. You've heard it now first, if you will. I'm sure you're going to hear more about it in the future. And we're excited. If you'd like to learn a little bit more, I'm happy to talk with you about it after the presentation. And I think at this point in time, I'm happy to take any questions that anyone may have about what we're doing at Oncology Ventures.
Thank you. So we have a possibility, you have a possibility to ask questions, and Henrik will provide you with a mic, my colleague from the back. But I have, we have one there, but I will kick off with one question here, and that is the DRP, and you've always been given that question of the value of the standalone, so this is the same question, but in a different angle. If Big Pharma gave you an offer for DRP now, would you sell?
Depends on how big the offer was, right? The reality is we're getting a lot of interest from a number of big pharma companies for the exact reasons that I mentioned. Our ability to predict whether or not a big pharma drug works more effectively is pretty revolutionary. And we've had discussions with them, and when in case in point, the example, the second product that I shared with you was a Bristol Myers Squibb product. We actually took the Bristol Myers Squibb data from them, and I said, don't tell us who the responders are. And they gave us the tissue samples. We ran them through our DRP, and we were actually able to predict with complete accuracy which of the patients in their studies actually had a response and which did not. That is unprecedented for us to be able to do that. Now, it doesn't work all the time. It works for a great number of products, but there are a few that we're still trying to sort out. But we've got over 75 so far, more to come. But it's a great question. I mean, we got to entertain any opportunity, and I can tell you that the door is beginning to get knocked on with the big pharma companies asking us. So we'll stay tuned. Question there?
Actually, I have two questions. I'll begin with the first one. As I understand, you need some information about each individual patient. And you mentioned, I think, that you need a biopsy from a patient. So my question is, how do you do that? What kind of information do you gather from each patient?
So we get a sample biopsy from each patient, which is very typical. When everyone, unfortunately, is presented with cancer, the doctor usually takes a sample of it because they want to understand what kind of cancer it is. That tissue biopsy gets sent to us, and we can process two things. One, we can use fresh biopsy, we'll call it fresh frozen biopsy from a patient, let's say a patient from this week. Our DRP is also accurate for biopsies that were collected 10 years ago. When a biopsy is collected and stored, they actually store it in paraffin wax, and we are able to still be able to get the RNA and DNA sequencing out of that tissue sample regardless. So, long answer to your question, we need a tissue sample from the patient either today or 10 years from today. Either way, we still can get the answers. And
what kind of information do you actually extract from that biopsy?
Yeah, so we actually get signaling pathways from the tissue sample, what kind of expression they may have, what kind of tumor they may have, what kind of signaling they have. Old traditional diagnostics usually just look at the tissue sample and say, well, how's this tumor expressing BRCA1 or VEGF or some other signaling pathway? But that's not the only answer. The answer is, how does that work in biology, in human body? You've got genes interacting, you've got an environmental system, all that is happening simultaneously. So the companies today that just do a diagnostic test, it is very singular, and that's why they have so many failures. It's just looking at one stream. They're not looking at the complexity of genes, human biology, all the different processes. And so the amount of data required to do this kind of work is really remarkable, right? And we're able to process that in some sophisticated computer algorithms, but it's a great question.
And then I'll just jump in with another question here, and it's regarding your step 1, 2, 3, and the Vitnim you had on 2020, 2024 approval, and obviously it's in the hands of the FDA, which is as close to heaven as you can get. But when you get that approval and given the 22, 25, what then? What happens? What do you need? Do you need money, or do you need cooperation with Big Pharma? What can we expect from you?
So we have, we're going to be filing our NDA, sorry for all the acronyms, our NDA with the FDA next year. So with Davitinib, we're going to be taking this product, came from Novartis, adding our tool, increase the efficacy, and file that. That's happening next year. Now, when the FDA approves it, knock on wood, we have really one of three choices. One is we can decide to commercialize it on our own, where we build the complete infrastructure, Salesforce, et cetera. I've done that in previous companies before. It's certainly a channel, an area. You garner all the value from that. That's one. The second is we can partner with a big pharma company. Imagine if you've got an approved drug, you get a lot of attention from big pharma because it's an approved drug, right? And they have very few approvals. So that's another avenue where you can partner with a big strategic partner. The third is a combination of the two. You can maintain certain territories yourself. Let's say we wanted to preserve our value in Sweden and Denmark, but we wanted to partner with big pharma for the rest of Europe or US or what have you. So that's a wonderful problem to have. At that point in time, we'd be looking at our investment requirements. Go it alone, go with a big partner, or some blend in between, and then we'll decide, then. So I look forward to that dilemma and that challenge.
And the crux here is really FDA rather than anything else, or
yeah,
NDA,
I mean, it's the regulatory authorities, either FDA or EMEA. When we file, it just all depends upon, how quickly they can review and respond. But keep in mind, we're filing products by increasing their efficacy rate twofold and threefold. That's the order of magnitude. So if a drug had a 20% response rate for, let's say, late-stage breast cancer, we're demonstrating a 60% response rate. And we're doing that because we're giving it to the people most likely to respond. So we've narrowed down that patient population to those that are going to get the best benefit, and we're increasing the response rates pretty dramatically. It's really, really quite remarkable.
Ja, jag har en fråga. Hur ska ni ta betalt? Ska doktorerna skicka in vävnadsprover till er och sen tar ni betalt av doktorer och försäkringsbolag? Och det vill säga, hur ska ni tjäna pengarna helt enkelt?
So oh, you didn't get that.
I didn't get all that.
So the question is really one: when you take the samples, the tissue samples,
Yes.
How are you getting remunerated, and if you are, and then how are you going to make the money? What's the pricing model?
Yeah.
Going forward?
So the pricing model will be. Obviously, we'll be selling our own products, okay? So we get paid for the product, and we also get paid for running the DRP associated with the product. So you can imagine kind of a package deal. When an oncologist decides to give a patient a certain drug, they have to run a DRP diagnostic tool in addition to giving that drug. We get paid on both of those. Now, the other big positive benefit is that since we are so accurate with respect to which patients will benefit, our pricing will be aligned that way. So right now in the past, everybody gets, no matter whether you benefit or you get paid, you get priced the same way, okay? We're taking a different view, saying we're not going to give it to the people that aren't going to benefit. We're going to give the people that do. But the people that do, obviously, you pay a little bit more because we know you're going to get a response. So that's the way we look at it. So that's the pricing model. We get paid two ways, the test and the actual drug itself. And we own all the intellectual property, so we own the patents. We own the patents on drugs, let's say, for example, Pfizer drugs. Pfizer's drugs in combination with our DRP diagnostic predictor, we hold the patents, not Pfizer. So when the time comes and I have a discussion with Pfizer as an example, it'll be a very interesting discussion.
And the pricing is the same, whether it's a hospital or a big
Yeah,
pharma?
and the markets are different. Countries are different. Some have hospital pricing, clinic pricing. It's different, a little different in the U.S., but the important thing, we're getting the right drug to the right person that gets the best benefit. That's, at the end of the day, we believe if you do that well, it's good business.
Well, in that case,
All right,
thank you very much.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Very efficient. Thank you.